Welcome everyone to our AIM Sports webinar. We're here today to talk about math channels, and Ray Studio 3 went has gone production with the analysis part. Oh gosh, now a couple of months ago, we went through. It's in the list down in if you're watching this later on YouTube. The list will be down inside of the description where we talk about every function. And while we had done a math channel a discussion ahead of when we started those, they've changed a little bit here and there, some added functionality and certainly some bug fixes and such. So I thought it was really the right time to do this was to go in and have another run at practical uses of the Ray Studio 3 math channels and just talk through how you would use them in your day-to-day world. So the to be honest with you, the Ray Studio 3 math channels is something. I seen somebody over here, Jeff said something about being a late adopter to something, and it just rung a bell with me. The math channel function is the last thing that I'm learning a lot as well. So often I try to order these webinars in a way that makes sense for the most of the people, but in this case, I think math channels is happening after the rest, mostly because of me, probably. So, but they're working fairly well now, and a good time to talk about them and get some practical feedback, and then of course we have the programmer here, running of the software team that's going to help us through some of the more deep questions. So please put your chat is going well, and I love that. That's something we love about these webinars. But if you have a question you think is about the function we're talking about today, make sure you put them into the question and answer. And if it's about the math channel function and stuff we're working on today, we'll try to bring them up and chat about them and get them answered here today. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and get started. We have a couple of co-hosts today that they should be well known to all of you guys. The Emiliano is here from AIM Sportline in Italy. Runs the software team there and works very, very hard and sees all of your emails and comments. Chats with Matt and myself almost daily sometimes. And then we also have Matt Romanowski, many-time co-host here, has been a very helpful early adopter of using Ray Studio 3 and helps us with bouncing ideas off of, trying it out in the field. There's that is so valuable to us as we're putting this all together. And they're both here today, and we will go over a number of things. So in the presentation, which you'll have a link to, if you're watching this later on YouTube, there is some good information in here on some of the slides. And that's why we're gonna, we'll link it, but they're a little bit short bio for each one of them is in there, and but really the slides that will do you some real good are the ones that we're going to talk about here. So math channels. Thank you too, by the way, for coming. If I didn't get there, I really do appreciate all the extra work that everybody goes to co-host, and you guys have done it. Probably the top two that have done that. So I thank you both for coming. The math channels. There's the piece I wanted to kind of add to this is Ray Studio 2 was here and Ray Studio 3 is here now. And a lot of you have built a lot of math channels in Ray Studio 2. Maybe you've got some ideas of what you want. One of the things that has been working really well is if you have some math channels in Ray Studio 2, that whole export out of Ray Studio 2 and bringing those over to Ray Studio 3 is a fairly straightforward process. And all you need to do is export the ones you want out of, either as a group or individual, however you wish to do it. Export those out of Ray Studio 2, and there is an import process in Ray Studio 3 that you can follow. We've talked about it before, and maybe when we get in some live data, we can quickly show it. But it's pretty straightforward, and it reconfigures everything and brings it into Ray Studio 3. There is a couple of things that somebody mentioned in the chat box, the constants. That term is a Ray Studio 2 way that business was being done then. Well, we're handling that a little bit differently in Ray Studio 3, and Emiliano probably will cover a little bit of that specific topic when we get into that area. Okay, but that coming across is really powerful. Matt's going to cover a little bit of these next few slides, which is how to we, in the channel library in Ray Studio 3, we can put those into different groupings, and there's some really good information about how to do some certain things. I think I'll turn it over to Matt at this point, where we can kind of open up, and start looking at these slides real quickly, and show you the difference. Maybe Matt used it with a little bit of a flair of the difference of Ray Studio 2, but focusing on 3, and then and how it's best used.
Yeah, this is a spot where, as I've played with it, I like the new layout and the functions of Ray Studio 3 Math Channels so much more than in Ray Studio 2. And I made a couple quick slides just as reference for you if you want to go back and look at them. What's really nice now is if there's a problem with a math channel, Ray Studio 3 is going to tell us in a couple different ways. So the first thing that we see is on the left-hand side of the screen where we have all of our channel names, you can see how it shows the exclamation mark, the attention. And that tells us there's something in this math channel that's causing a problem. And then not only do we see that there's a problem with it, when we move towards the right, it tells us exactly what's going on and why it's not working. And it says we have these two channels that, in this case, it's an unknown channel function, but it's going to tell us what's wrong and what's going on. So we don't have to guess, and we don't have to have all these kind of trials and tribulations that we used to have figuring it out. So it gives us some clues as we start to have trouble. The next one I wanted to show is this catches a lot of people. It's probably the most common question I get when I'm at the track is when you say exit after doing your math channels, we have a window and it tells us pay attention to the channels that won't apply. All this is doing is telling us somewhere there's a channel that we're not applying or that there's a problem with it. It doesn't mean the one that you were working on, and we know which ones it is because we have these attention marks to it. This one really, we just have to acknowledge that there's something happening or something not happening in a channel somewhere. Not that we have a problem with what we're trying to do.
It's funny, but and I think it's in a slide later by either you or Emiliano, but a session is always open and working, right? And so that all Ray Studio 2 is saying here is there is a problem with some math channels. It may not even be in the test you're opening, but we're always glancing at the math channels. We're always glancing at the database as a program, and there is you have an issue in there somewhere. Okay, but click on OK and move on, right?
Can I say one thing?
Absolutely.
The session that is currently open is the one you are analyzing, or in case you are analyzing no session, the session that's open when this window is being shown is the selected session in the database.
Yeah, the one that you're previewing, right, from the database window is actually in focus, and so it's saying, well, these two here, they don't work on whatever you have working. So, okay, perfect. So Matt, the next page.
The other neat thing that Ray Studio 3 does for us is, so we say, okay, there's a channel that has a problem. Well, when we look at our measures list, it tells us where these problems are as well. And we'll see these little notes. And when we hover our mouse over the note, you can see it reads out and it tells us there's an error detected on that math channel. And it'll say, it can't find a channel with that name. So it's looking for something that's not available. And similarly, is sometimes when we're not looking at math channels, another neat spot where these notes show up is if you had a sensor disconnected and there were no samples or something like that, it'll come up and you'll see a note that says there's no samples for that channel. So just in our measures list, we get these indications of what's going on when there is a problem.
Yeah, these little notes have been, I have found them to be more and more helpful all the time. If you build you create a brand new configuration, and maybe you only used 3 of your 8 analog channels, and you accidentally left them turned on, right? The 4 through 8, and and all of a sudden you'll go in there and you have to go, okay, well, what is actually has data and what doesn't, or you have an ECU list. And of course, our protocols, sometimes the ECU doesn't have that channel in it, but we wrote the protocol to cover many different operations. We know right away that there's no reason to turn it on and go search. It's going to tell us that there's no data in there in that particular channel, that's a very handy thing. So I like that a lot. Okay, the next one was something you and I think stumbled upon, might be the wrong term, but this one was kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, and this is thanks to Emiliano's coworker Filippo, who's done a lot of work here and is super helpful with us. Is Roger and I were working on something, we couldn't get it to work, and the neat thing is this comment box has the error note that we see in the other one. In it, you can scroll over and read the whole thing when you're looking at it real time. The other neat thing, and this caught Roger and I, and this is kind of when we talk about learning something every time we do a webinar, is when we look at it, we see the frequency of it is at 0, which 0 hertz means it's not being calculated at all. But the math engine inside Race Studio 3 can't calculate something if it's not working, so it comes up as 0. So that can be another little bit of a check to know that there's something wrong going on, that you can see if it's not computing it, well, then it's looking for a channel or something, versus maybe your math is wrong and it's computing it and you don't get the answer you want. So a nice way to have another check in what you're doing.
Yeah, and Ray Studio 2 did not quite work that way. And when Matt and I were trying to walk down the error path, right, trying to figure out, okay, when is this, whatever we were working on when was it having a problem and where is the problem? We glance up at some point, I think Matt did, and frequency 0. That's odd. Never seen that before. Because it almost, in Race Studio 2, it just pulled whatever you told it, and it was always in there, right? And that really helped us. And then I think Matt noticed the comment, and it turns out it matches what's on that little note. So very, very handy little feature. Again, these slides are just to give you something to have if you open up the document later to review a little bit. But we're going to actually go into some live data and talk about a lot of these things as well. And Matt, finally.
These ones, we're going to do these live and we're going to create them real time. So, but I wanted to give you a slide that had some of these kind of 3 more simple math channels, just to kind of get things flowing. And then I wanted to do one that was a little more involved and do it in a way maybe that people wouldn't always think about. So use a couple different channel functions in there. So if you watch this and you can't remember what they were, you want to try it, you want to use it as a reference because you have some other idea, this is a great spot to go back and grab it and be able to cut and paste.
Yeah, the math channels as a whole, as we kind of transition from Matt's to Emiliano, math channels as a whole, to me I've got data, I've got sensors, I've got all this information, and then I always am, the way your mind needs to work when you're working with data, instead of me having to think this through of your last 2, and here's a perfect example, is you really wanted to know, okay, well, what are my tire temperatures doing under braking? And yeah, you could have zoomed in on it. You could have just looked at it and visually filtered it out, right? And got a good idea. But if you think of something and you go, boy, I'd like to have that information better at hand, and I'm going to look at it all the time, may as well have it where I can put it into reports and average just when that's happening, or build an XY spreadsheet. I'm sorry, an XY plot. So here you just built this math channel that to do just what you wanted, and it's the example one that's on the thing here, where the temperatures, you can see the 2 front tires going up in temperature. All of a sudden they went from 0 to boom, and it's when the brake pressure was above 20. You take the average of your 2 tires, right? And boom, you've got it only when it's active of when you want it. So it's the other thing I do a lot is, okay, I've built this math channel, and then I think, okay, well, I'm not very good at math channels, so then it's, well, I'm going to take that math channel, I'm going to cut and paste it in, and I'm going to use that same exact flow to do when what I want, only my lambda, when only my throttle is greater than 75%, and I just substitute it in because I'm not smart enough to remember how to write math channels all the time. So I end up cutting and pasting and refilling in the values that I'm after, kind of a thing. So here you could average your left and right lambda sensors when the throttle position is greater than 80, and just by re-editing the same basic text. So kind of cool stuff. I appreciate it.
And Roger, one of the really neat functions we can talk about when we start making the channels is instead of having to cut and paste anymore, it was one I was using when we were putting this together. Is all of a sudden I remember there's a clone button now.
Yeah. Perfect. I'm still old school at some level, right? I haven't played with it enough to be totally up to speed either.
Right. All these new features.
Yeah, very good. Okay, Emiliano, let's jump into your slides again. You'll go through them fairly quickly. We'll be spending some time in Ray Studio 3, and the topic that you're going to chat about is a little bit of an advanced topic inside of the Math Channels, but important. So I did want to cover it and let everybody know that. Let me just go to the first slide. I want everybody to know that our plan as of today is to revisit and do a more of an advanced math channel session where lookup tables will be a bigger part of that, where we will dig into them deeper. But Emiliano and the team has done some work on these and have them working fairly well. So he wanted to kind of reintroduce them at least at some level and get everybody to chat about it. So go through these slides real quickly, Emiliano, and let's and then we'll do a look at them in live data as well.
Rather quickly, lookup tables are kind of a interpolation table that can be added to compute channels when math formula are not possible. It's a feature that you will see in the math channel creation window. It's on the bottom right corner of the window. You can create, delete, edit properties, or modify lookup tables. We can have 2-dimensional lookup table or 3-dimensional lookup table. The logic is fairly the same, but with the obvious difference that in 2D lookup table you get an output value as a result of an input value on a single channel, and in the 3D lookup table you get an output value over 2 input channels. We can go to the next slide, and okay. Here is when you create a new lookup table, you need to insert obviously the name of the table. If you want to interpolate linearly within the table values, or if you want to have a stepped
approach
advancement. Yeah, okay. And which is the function and the units for the x channel, axis channel, and which is the function and the units for the y axis channel. Once you click OK, you will be created. You will be seeing that a file is created into your file system. The file extension is LUT2D, but it's a text file that can be edited with, say, Windows Notepad or any text editor you might have on your machines. If we go to the next slide, okay, you can start. You imagine you can start from any spreadsheet values. You can create. I imagined here a work that I did on a car, kind of 15 years ago. I did a channel over to measure the fuel level into the tank over the millivolt given by the sensor to have a correct curve shown on an Excel. Here we can do it now with a lookup table. Once I create a lookup table in a way that I will be showing you directly live in just a few minutes, you get a lookup table file on your file system, as I just said, and when you go editing it, you will see what's in the left bottom part of this window now. The only parts of the file that you need to modify is the table itself, the curve points shown here, and the number of the rows of curve points. the number of rows is virtually unlimited. Of course, it's limited by PC memory and by the willingness of entering point. Okay, and once you save it and you apply the lookup table into a math channel, it will be computed exactly the way you need it. And rather quickly, we can move to a 3D lookup table. New definition. Here we have also the z-axis, where x and y here are the inputs, and the z-axis is the output. Once again, you choose function and units for your lookup table, and in the next slide we can see I created an example that made right out of a mapping curve from an ECU. I exported it into a CSV format, and I created the file, the lookup table file. Again, here the only thing you need to enter here is the curve points and the two numbers in the first two rows. The first number is the exact number of rows of this file, and the second number is the exact number of columns. Once you populate them and all the lines are properly entered, the lookup table will do its job, and the math channel will be computed.
I know there are a lot of people are excited about lookup tables, and there's the powerful reasons to use them, right? And especially as we get into more complex ways of looking at data, the three-dimensional ones, the 3D ones, seem awful powerful.
Yes, but also the 2Ds. Say the most common case I have in my mind is a suspension channel where you cannot install a potentiometer that is parallel to the shock absorber. So you need to do some maths to adjust it, and math to do this can be rather complicated, and the quickest way to do it is, according to me, with a lookup table. That's very powerful.
We've done a lot of math channels in the past, and we use that motion ratio because it's the shock pot and the shock sensor and the shock and the suspension are all at three different places, right? And and rarely, but occasionally, but rarely are they linear. And so having the lookup table is you can lay the shock sensor off to the side, move it way up the arm. Maybe it's going through a crank of some sort that is changing the ratio as it's being applied. Things like that. But now we can handle that pretty easily.
Yep.
So perfect. And I think that's the last of those slides, and we'll look into it a little bit as well. But I'm going to bring up my Race Studio 3. I'm going to show you just a couple of things that I had in mind to begin with. And ironically, I've seen a little bit of what I'm going to show in some of the chats and some of the questions. I may not have all the answers, but I got a couple people here that can probably help me, right? Let's open up the Math Channel function first. Of course, it's the Math Channel icon up here. It can be opened up from right here where we're deep inside of a session, or when you're just at the all tab where we're looking at things. You can always open this up, obviously. What I wanted to talk a little bit of is a couple of things. Number one, for years, 8-10 years ago, we started to use math channels a lot more, and people were asking me as the support guy that, hey, what do you have as math channels? What's some things that we can do to help, make this easier to do X, Y, and Z? So I started to gather, and I started to write math channels that were working. The people kind of wanted them. I called them switch channels, and that made it easy for the way Race Studio 2 was written to get a throttle on and maybe a coasting channel, and all you had to do is change a couple of things in the math channels and that fit your data. And I put all those into a spreadsheet, and I have sent out that spreadsheet. I'll bet you if it's under 1,000 times, I'd be surprised. I've sent out that list of math channels in a spreadsheet and in an AMC, which was the Race Studio 2 file format where you could import them. I've sent that all over the place. And then when Ray Studio 3 was becoming built, Emiliano took those same plus added a few and tweaked them a little bit maybe here and there. But the stuff that we've been sending out is now core and available to everybody right in Ray Studio 3, and they're under a list called GPS, and so they're kind of built around, if you have a GPS sensor, we can make these work, right? And break on. And if we look at that one, it's the longitudinal G. It's not using brake pressure, but it's using the longitudinal G, and it's got a little description up here. It talks about that one will be turned on if the longitudinal G's are less than 0.15. We know you're on your brakes, and the output is 0 if brakes are off, 1 if brakes are on. So you end up with this data channel. From there, we can tweak them. But all of that stuff that I worked on for years and was sharing, and a lot of other people worked on it, have been applied into here. So in this library, there's a ton of information right off the bat before you even get started, which is kind of handy. GSUM and some others. And then I've built a couple here that I thought I would just show real fast, and then move on to Matt and have him chat a little bit about his. The one that I have on my screen is a rolling average. It's something that I've kind of wanted for a long time, and maybe you've got filters are a fairly deep topic, and there are hundreds and maybe thousands of different types of filters and how to apply them. And filter A is good for this type of a filtering need, and filter B is good for this type, and not always are they the same. So I'm going to show something here, and I'm going to give you my description of what it is, but dig into it a little bit. And there's maybe Emiliano will talk about some of the filtering that is available in here already. But this one here struck with me with some of the problems that I've been having, or ways I wanted to present the data. So this one's called smooth vertical acceleration. There's an accelerometer in some of the off-road guys use, and there is some noise in it, right? It's got not just from movement, but I think it's just a noisy signal, right? The truck's vibrating and all the different things. So I wanted to smooth that out, and I wanted to use some sort of a rolling average, so we get the basics of when the truck is being compressed and when the truck is left the ground. But I didn't want to have every 50th of a second with the noise that's part of it. So I'm going to get this. So here's the math channel, rolling average, and it's asking what is the channel you want to do the rolling average on, and then at what level do you want to do it, right? And there's we've got some documentation out there that we're working on that's has been linked, I think, already. A draft of the syntax, and it'll be in the YouTube description below later as well. I'm going to jump out of this, and I'm going to look at that particular data just to give you an idea of how it kind of works, and then maybe we'll look at the GSUM or something real quickly. But this one here is I've smoothed it out. The blue one is the natural data, and the red one is the smooth version. And if we zoom in just a little bit, you can kind of see that it, in this particular case, if this was suspension data, let's say, I don't think that this rolling average is really the right way to do it. There's other filters that might be better. Emiliano can maybe hit on that later, but for truly noisy data that is moving like this, this red line is a line that you can kind of hang your hat on, and it's just kind of cleaned up the noise a little bit. It's taken the 5 data points, the 5 closest data points, and it's, because that's what I told it was 5, and it's brought those together, and at every data point it puts it averages those 5. It's much deeper than that probably, but that's how I understand it. And I end up with this red line, which is a line that I can look at and say, this is when the truck was, this is suspension, this is car data. This is some of Matt's data from Lime Rock, always available in links down below in this area here. But you can see when the car has been pressed into the ground and when the car gets light here at Lime Rock, and you can see where his car is over here in the map, and so you get this general idea, but without all that noise. So that's just one math channel that I have wanted for a while. This rolling average is one that I think is pretty good. We've got other filters, and maybe we'll talk about those in a moment. But the other one that of course, I've got my own little channel library here, and I always save things up into my area, right? So I've got a GSUM here, and if I open this up, my area, I've just given it my name, and when I build one, I put it in this area, so it helps me filter things out. Matt talked about that, and I'm sure he'll go into a little bit more detail. And then you check it out, you verify that it works, and channel applies correctly, and you click on OK. And I've got a yellow star here. And that yellow star is nothing more than when you hover over these, each one of these, you're going to get this little cogged wheel. And if we click on that, I can either delete that one or I can switch it off. And I've got it set for all sessions. So if I open a data file, the way I've got this one set up, because it's full, this one here is just the outline of the star, but the orange star is full. I've got it. If I open a test, GPS GSUM is a channel that's available to me because I've turned it on for everything. If I look at gear and I do the same thing, you'll see here's the options: enable gear for all sessions or enable gear for only data that came from this logger. And it gives me the what the logger was, and it gives me the ID number, the serial number of the logger. Kind of makes it a little easier for multi-car teams to have math channels that work for them. So we tried to make this a little bit more friendly for multi-cars. I'm going to kind of leave it at that. I've got also one here that if I see some data, some math channels I like, I've got an import, Roger import. If I bring them in there, I bring them into this one, and I can start to look at them, play with them, and if I like them, I end up moving them into Roger, right? And just a system that works for me. But you have options to have many different items and areas. Okay. Perfect. I'd like to hand it over to Matt now, and we're going to share. I'm going to stop my share, and let Matt share his screen so we can all see that, and he will talk a little bit about some of the math channels that he's built, and a little bit more detail on some of the slides, the information of the slides that he was showing us. It just popped up, Matt, so we are seeing yours, and go ahead.
Perfect. So I started out in a file, and one of the things I wanted to point out that Emiliano commented on is when whatever session we have highlighted here, if we go to the math channels button here, or we do it inside the session, it's always working on this session. And that's where he talked about, even if we close it, we can edit it, these math channels from here as well. And it's giving us the notices for that particular channel.
Ray Studio kind of worked in that same way, so that has been brought across, but a little bit more clean now.
Yeah, and you don't have to open the session. That's one of the things I love about that summary.
Yeah, exactly.
We can do all this work without really digging into a session. So when we get in here, I wanted to kind of walk through making a whole channel. And one of the popular ones, and it's something that I usually tell people about, is input as a driver that we often forget we can change is how fast we actually turn the wheel. So a derivative is a function, it gives us a rate of change. It's how fast we're doing something, how quick it changes. So when we want to make a new channel, we can click on the plus and we have all our options. So I'm going to go in and just call this one. I'm going to use something I like that the guys are saying in the chat boxes. It's a math channel. So I'm going to start it with M.
That is a good point. Yeah, that is a good point.
Choose a function. So this one, this is something, the functions, they added a whole bunch of things, and I saw this in prepping for it. I'm going to call this number, but I suggest people start digging in because look at all the different temperatures that we now have available. Pretty powerful as we start getting into everything. So when we say it's a number, now we have our area that Roger talked about. These areas, again, super powerful as you want to try to organize because it can be anything from a car name to a person to a team to a whatever you want. You know, Roger had his kind of quick ones and different things. So this one, just to make it easy, I'm going to leave it in the kind of unnamed. We can put a comment. Steering rate of change. And this is something Charlie asked about that it'll pop up in our box. Now, the way I like to make my formulas is I go through and I let the software really prompt me as I'm doing it. So I'm going to go here and I know I want a derivative. So I scroll down till I get to derivative. I double click it. And now we see it gives us the base outline of what we have to fill in. And then I always seem to fat finger it. I type the wrong thing in the wrong spot. So I use this verify formula button all the time. And I click verify formula and it'll tell me what's wrong with it. And here it's telling me there's an unknown word, a channel or variance. It doesn't know what it is. And it tells me down here, check this one out. So then what I do is I use the search function, and I type in steering. I get steering position. I double click it, and it replaces the part that was highlighted. So I don't have to try to align everything perfect. I don't have to try to get my quotes and everything. It just does it for me.
And
Now
yeah, you mentioned that it gives you those notes of when the channels use those red text, right? What's wrong?
Right.
That is powerful, but you and I both agree, and it's I'm not great at typing, and maybe miss a little bit on something. Being able, by it highlighting it, you being able to go to that list and just double clicking on it and it fills in it for you, that is probably the most powerful part of that function.
Yeah. So then we put our channel name in. I can click verify again, and it says we're okay. So I can say okay. It adds it to my list. And this is one of the spots that I saw we've talked about a little bit.
Yep.
It's still, I think, a gotcha for a lot of users. So here, where my new channel is, we see there's no symbol, there's no pentagon, there's no star. So I have to go over to my gear and say, what do I want to apply it to? And here, I'm going to say, I want to enable it for my logger, because I work with a lot of different cars. I get data from different people. So this is only going to be mine because it's only going to work for me with my channel name. I'm going to say exit. It says pay attention. The name won't apply. We say okay, because we can see there's other errors. Now I have that channel in here. And again, I rely on this M all the time, or the search function. So I can just type MS, pops up with my steering. I can add the channel, put it on its own graph. And now I can see that I have super overactive hands because it's changing all the time. Great question somebody had. I can turn on my Google Map image. I can click at a point on the track, and I can see just how quick things are going.
And you have that one area, you go right there to where the spikiness is the heaviest, to the right there about an inch. And then you boom, right there is where your car gets loose, and no doubt what's happening is he's having to catch the car, and you can see it in the video. And analyze. We always talk about it here. What happened, where it happened, why did it happen? These are all the steps getting down to that, right?
We can zoom in.
And if you turned on your steering sensor itself, you would then be able to see even which direction you turned it, right? To get this overall speed. So
so we can see, we can add steering position, and we see it all.
There's the big catch, right? And there's where the hands were the fastest of the entire lap, right there.
So a really nice way to make a math channel. And then what we can do now is sort of Roger's point is we say we can cut and paste, but now instead of needing to cut and paste everything, we can clone. So we can go up here and we have a clone button. So we highlight the channel we want, we click the clone, it pulls it up. And then now we don't want steering position, so we want brake pressure. So what I did there is I highlighted the channel I wanted to change, and then I double click the new channel. I'm going to change my name to brake speed. I'm going to leave the other items there to kind of quickly getting things going. And we say, okay, we have to remember to apply it. So
two-step process. You build it, and then you what am I want to applying it to? Two-step process.
Right. We can exit. We say, okay, we know something's not going to work. And now we can pull up
and
add this channel, and we can see how quick my feet are on the pedal or on the brake pedal. How fast do I apply the brake? How quickly do I slowly release it? So it gives us some different ways to say, we know we want to have a quick brake application. Well, now we can put a number to these things. The other one I want to do quickly to go over with people is, how do we build something maybe a little more involved? And I said, well, what's something different? And maybe we do it with tire temps. So again, I work with these, and I always think, how do I get the software to do as much as I can for me? Because it has some great things. So I'm going to call this, say, front tires turning. A function, tires, and we can say we have this great list of all the different things. And for now, we're just going to pick front tire surface temp, exactly what we're doing. Leave it in the general area. And then now I'm going to build a little more involved math channel. So I'm going to start out with an if. So I double click my if, and then I'm going to start with the verify formula. And it gives me a whole bunch of errors, but I'm just going to go with what is the one that it highlights, so we know what's going on. So in this one, we say, what's the condition we want? We say, well, I want to know my brake temperature or my tire temperature when I hit the brakes. How much is it going to change it? So here I can say, what's the condition that we want to start looking at? And we say, well, that's brake pressure. But we don't want just the brake pressure. We want brake pressure, say, greater than something. So we can do this two ways. We can do it with the greater than button, which is, or the function, which is how a lot of people always think of it. One of the ones that I've started to use a little bit more is the high pass filter. So I'm going to go that way today. And what the high pass filter does is it sets a minimum level of something before it gives you that output. So as we go through, it's going to say the high pass. It says what's going to be our minimum thing that we want to look at. And I'm going to say 10. So if there's more than 10 pounds of brake pressure, when we click to check the formula again, it says, well, what channel do we want a minimum of 10? And I'm going to add brake pressure. Continue with my verify formula. We say, well, what if it's true? What do we want? Well, we want the average temp of the front brakes. So I'm going to go up to average. I'm going to add that function, say verify formula, and it goes, what things do we want? So now I'm going to go in and put tire for my search. I can pull everything up and we say we want our front tire, verify formula to keep highlighting everything, our right tire, verify formula. Now, if it says, if we're not on the brakes, what output do we want? And I'm going to put 0. Verify it. It says everything works. You can say, okay, we can exit. And then now we're going to turn off some of these other channels. So we clean things up and we can put in M, scroll down here. We have our front tire temp under braking. So now anytime that brake pressure is over 10 pounds, we have our, the average front tire temp. And instead of RPM, we want to make this a little more valuable. We can put in our speed. And we can see as you're on the brakes and the car's slowing down, we can see how it's putting tire temp into the front tires. And then from there, you can use this kind of thing. Maybe we say, well, how quick does it add temp? Well, then we can add
the derivative of and
the
all sorts
derivative
of
it, right?
Yeah.
So you keep building all these things and get deeper and deeper and deeper.
The age-old question: what adds tire temperature on during warm-up? Right? Is it braking or is it turning or is it throttling? Right? You could do an easy, quick study here of your warm-up lap, and we could understand it even better
so you
for
can
your
take
car.
This right? We have I linked the data earlier. You can grab this. You can start cloning this channel and change it from brake pressure and say if the throttle position's high, if the brake pressure is high, the steering is a certain thing, right? And you can do your own study, learn from the data that you have to see what applies to your car.
James Colburn always mentions when he does seminars with us that your curiosity is really the limit, and I think it's wonderful because I sit down. Sometimes you're sitting at the racetrack or at home, and you're going, boy, if I knew that. What I really want to know is this: how do I work that out? And tire temperatures is something that you had thought of, and I really want to know this. Boom, you figure out a way to write up a math channel to get to it, right? With the different variables. Perfect, Matt. I appreciate that.
I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay.
Then,
I'm going to get ready to share with Emiliano, but I'm going to share mine one more time as Emiliano's getting ready. I think he's already ready, but I'm going to share my screen really quickly and show you a document that Oops, let's get Matt out of the way there.
There's a good
There we
looking
go. I don't know. I didn't think it showed that. There's a document that's linked out. I thought it hid the Zoom stuff on your one panel. There is a document that has been linked. I think in the chat box. It certainly will be linked
Okay.
in the YouTube below. There's we're talking a lot of stuff. We're talking fairly quick. We only have a short amount of time. Emiliano wrote this document up. It's a bit of a draft right now. We're going to continue to add to it, but it's a math channel formula syntax, and it goes through and it talks about all the different things that are part of the Ray Studio 3 math channels. And grab this document and download it. It's a PDF. You should be able to easily see it. But I'm just going to scroll through fairly quick. I'm going to go just run down to the middle. It goes down to some of these different filters and some of these different powers and square roots and what the software is expecting it is, and in some cases what it's doing and how it works. There's some filters and other things in here. The mins and maxes. There's the high pass that Matt just used. I also, like Matt, I'm not using if statements nearly as much now. I just want to, I want to take care of, wipe out anything that's, lower than this, higher than this. High pass, low pass, band pass. Band, you can go a top and a bottom limit and get rid of all the data that's in or outside of something. Filters. I think Kyle Watkins was asking about filters and rolling averages, and while not every bit of information you may want here, Kyle, there is some information about the different filters that are in here. There's an FIR, a rolling average, an EMA, the moving average one that I showed, all sorts of things. This document's valuable. Take a look at it, download it. It's out there free and for you to take a look at. It's what I use. Things like this is what I use to help me learn more about math channels as I need it, right? It's a great reference material. Okay. With that, I'm going to stop my share. And Emiliano, you should be free to share your screen. Here it comes. And there you are, up and showing.
Okay.
I apologize right off the bat to Emiliano. We didn't give him near as much time as we normally would. Emiliano, do your best. We've got maybe 10 minutes or so.
Okay. Let me show the lookup table feature that I entered. Okay. Here is my lookup tables. Just see, I created a three-dimensional lookup table to compute injection. I told you I created out of an ECU map, so it's I computed the injection time over TPS and RPM. How to once I created the lookup tables, I created it this way, just with the plus icon, and I created a 3D. I choose the function among the function list. That's always the same. And so let's see how it is. With this icon, I can customize it in case I did anything wrong. You can see here I created this lookup table, injection versus TPS and RPM. The first axis, that's an input channel, is the percentage of throttle load. The second channel is engine RPM, and the third, that's the output channel, is the injection duration. If I wanted to use this lookup table, just double click on it. I can also create it here. If I double click on it, I get these highlighted part entered into the math channel formula, in which it's a kind of a function. The function is LUT, like a lookup table. The first parameter that I entered is the name of the lookup table itself, and if I go to verify formula, it tells me okay, because it's done twice. Okay, it tells me which is the channel I want to use. I want to use first as the first channel. We remember it's a TPS, and the second channel, we remember it's an RPM. I choose the channels among those available for this session. And if I enabled this function is it's an empty star. I enable it for this session only. Okay, and the lookup table is down here. It's only computed at 1 hertz, but you can see. Let me show it together with RPM. I prepared another channel just to show the power. Let me. Okay, it's computed over TPS and it's computed over RPM. Let me separate those channels. So it's interpolating the values entered into the table, and I can show. Oh, I can show the table from here. 1 second. Okay, here it is. These are the values.
He's taxing his computer right now. There you go.
No.
There you go.
Here we go. Here is the values. It's a pretty big table.
Yeah, big, huge.
It's 64 columns and 10 rows, as I explained before. Into here, the first column is the value of this first channel. So it's 0%, 2.5%, 5%, and up to 100%. And these are the values for RPM at 250, 500, 770, 750, and so on. Once I save this file and I enter a channel, as I explained it before, this channel is computed. I wanted to show another application example that I created on the average function. As I told in the document that has just been linked, the average as well as the maximum and the minimum functions can be used even if the prototype that you are entered into the math channel formula is done. No, it's not ABS. It's a average. That's this one. The prototype that's entered features only 2 channels, but you can go on typing and create an average of 4 channels. I did it with the 4 wheel speeds of a vehicle, and I did the same for the maximum speed. So
I did not know that. Is that a change just in Race Studio 3? We've been limited, I thought, average, because it showed the 2 channels that I thought we had to stop there. But is it max 4, or is it if you keep putting commas, it's going to average whatever values together?
Virtually unlimited.
Okay.
Also here, I think the most common thing will be done on 2 for bikes and or on 4 for cars for say the 4 corners of the vehicle. But I can think also at exhaust thermocouples on an 8-cylinder engine.
The dragsters, especially, 8 of them. Yep. Lambdas, we see lambdas in all 8 in some of them. So tire temperature, Matt talked. Matt just did some things. It could be 3 wide on a tire. Maybe you want to do the entire front, so it might be 6 on a on tire temperature. I didn't average, another very powerful function now.
Yep. And once we apply, so let me check speed. Let me enable all of them. Let me take out the RPM, TPS, and other, and then we look for speed. We show the average and the maximum value of speed, and you see we can. I think the best is to place all of them together. Okay, this is wrongly scaled. It's 42 1/4 with a step of planning. Okay, that's it. Okay, they all come together now, and we can see that we have an average. It's white, so it's not that visible, but you can see that it's always computed as an average, and we have another white channel that's the maximum.
You can click on that channel, and sometimes it bolds it. It really works in that really works in Zoom. That's what I use it more there than anywhere else.
Okay. here is the maximum, and it's always at the top of the channels, and here is the average, and it's always so you can play a little bit with those functions. What else I can do though? Okay.
I have one more question that you
Okay.
started that I think proved the point that Matt mentioned about the functions, the function of a math
Okay.
channel. You opened up that table, and when you opened up that 3D table, if you could do that again, the
Okay.
where was that? Yeah, open up the 3D table.
Here it
Yeah,
is.
that one should work. But
the 3D, sorry.
the 3D, yeah. The what was cool about that is you notice in that function X, function Y, function Z boxes, there's percent throttle load, engine RPM, and injection load duration. Just proving the point of what Matt said. Boy, when you have a channel and AIM is Race Studio is using it more and more, and I think you have even more things planned, is those functions are very, very critical, because you can grab something here and just say, I want the engine RPM function for this data. So you don't have to plug in the exact channel name, any of things like that. You pick the function, and then the unit is RPM, and you get the RPM value out of that channel. Functions, give us a little bit of an update on why those are so important, and maybe some things that are coming in the future with functions. Like Matt said, the function, they're being expanded all the time. Matt found a bunch of changes just recently.
Let me create a channel named CHF. That's a channel function. I can create a function. Okay, clicking here, channel function. I can create a channel referencing another one, like let me say engine RPM. So I'm looking for a channel which function is channel is engine RPM, and I want to multiply it by 2. Okay, so I verified the formula. Here the math channel creation window tells me, okay, you are looking for a channel with this function, engine RPM. Okay, I click OK.
What if you had let's say wheel speed? What if you had two of them that, in this case, engine RPM? What if you had two engine RPMs that were in there? There was an ECU one and a square wave that you'd hooked up, whatever, right?
Okay.
What happens if you have two of them? Do you come up with a choice and it says, okay, which one do you like to pick?
So let me pick this one. So
I hate to throw, while you're doing that, I hate to throw questions out there to you that I didn't mention was coming.
Let me check.
Wheel speed. There you go. There you go.
Okay. Verify formula. Okay. This channel will be a number because it's not physically on. It's not physically a wheel speed because I'm multiplying it by 2 or whatever. Okay. Verify formula. The channel is correct. Here I go. I enable it just for this session. Okay, it tells me it's wrong. Here it tells me that it is unable to identify channel for the selected function, and it tells you math formula that this is the formula. Math formula can't be translated for this session. When I click here, I can click here. I have two ways to fix this issue. Either change the channel definition, so I'm prompted back here and I can modify anything here, or I can fix the channel for run and I can say I want to use this one.
There's your 5 different speed channels that you have in that side of that data file.
You will notice that even if I choose the wheel speed, it's prompting me the GPS speed because Race2 3 was unable to identify any channel with the wheel speed function set, very likely because this is a very old file and the function for these channels of the wheel speed were not properly set. And so it's prompting you all the speed channels. So Race2 3 is imagining you can
pick the one you want.
Yeah, you might want to use a speed and it's prompting you a selection of all the speed of the channel. So
Very, very good.
the channel is translated this way for this session, and okay, the verify formula it's not okay, and I click exit. Okay, this means it's not applying.
It may not have had it. Like you said, it's old data that didn't have functions on it.
Yeah.
What's interesting though is in that math channel area, I wasn't aware that it there did
It
work.
tells me it doesn't apply, but
It
as
did.
a matter of fact, it does.
You can take a
The
note.
bug is the message.
Exactly.
The bug is the message.
What's interesting though is in that dialog box, I didn't realize I've seen the error messages there, and Matt's probably I just haven't played with it enough. But very, very cool that you can actually go to that error message, go to the cogged wheel that's there, click on it, and it gives you the two options on how to fix it. I've always just went back and manually went back to the area and tried to fix whatever I did. I didn't realize there was a shortcut to help us walk me right through the process.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very cool. Very, very cool. Okay, is there, Emiliano, I know we rushed you a little bit. Was there anything else you wanted to chat about, or were there any questions that you saw that we want to chat about?
No, there. Basically, I think I covered all the questions using the question and answer window. So in case any other question arises, just let me know.
Perfect.
So.
Perfect. Again, everybody, apologize. These things are, we have like 45 minutes to do our best, right? In by the end, the starting and the endings. And this was a topic that we were going to the practical use of. We have in mind to do a webinars in the future. They're on the schedule, maybe a medium or a intermediate math channels, and then an advanced as far as webinars for what we're looking at, where we will dive in deeper into certain things with good examples, presentations where we share with you the math channels and the data. So we'll dig in a little bit deeper. Let me share my screen as we go. Thank you very much. Let me move that over here. Share this. Again, that I'll share it just one more time real quickly, but that document is very powerful. A lot of what all three of us have talked about is discussed somewhere in this document. It's many pages with lots of information, advanced logic. There's we talk a little bit about some of the trigonometric functions that are available to you, and on and on and on. So download that, took a look. Again, it's a draft. We'll be updating it and keeping it up to speed. Okay, perfect. The again, as always, as we get these done, as fast as we can finish them, I will turn them around and get them up on YouTube, which usually within an hour or so, with all of the links that we chatted about plus more. Will be if you're watching this on YouTube later, it's down on the in the description box. We'll have a bunch of different links to everything we talked about, plus older math channel videos that we've created and training materials we've created in the past that were certainly in Ray Studio 3, a couple in Ray Studio 3, but Ray Studio 2, but those can all be exported and imported into Ray Studio 3 and put into that format. So take a look at it on Ray Studio on YouTube. Customer support, we're out there. It's that time of year. We're all on the dead run, and the guys are all out there, and of course our dealers are at tracks. Look for the AIM support guys that are there. If we can only be at so many places, obviously there's literally thousands of race events with AIM loggers on them at across North America. So a little hard to beat them all, but give us a call if you have any questions if you don't see our folks there. The next webinar, got a few balls in the air, juggling a few things. I wasn't able to lock down exactly what we're going to do, so to be determined. You'll get the email an hour before, but it is my hope to be an analysis rounded Ray Studio 3 analysis topic. If not, got a couple of different options that I'm thinking about. If the analysis ones, if I can't tie them down, one will be map segments, something that we've talked about, obviously. But what are the good practical ways of creating map segments? What's the right way to do it? What are some options? Right now, they're always built on lateral Gs. Maybe we want to talk about segmenting, maybe longer segments, maybe based on braking zones, acceleration zones. Segments is a webinar that we'll be putting together fairly soon. That maybe that will be it. Maybe some other things as well. So, but let me know. Drop me an email at my email address, Roger@AimSports. If there's some topics that you want to do, we're certainly in the phase of looking at the next 8 or 10 webinars that we're going to build. So please give me your ideas, of those of you watching live and those of you watching on YouTube later. Let me know some topics that we haven't covered that you might want to cover. Here's the contact information for all of us. Mine there in the middle, and Matt from Trailbreak, Matt at trailbreak.com. Matt's always out there helping people. There's his email address, and Emiliano's. It's best to send it to software@aimsportline.com. The entire team sees it, including Emiliano. Again, they're had some people that, and very understandable, you may not get an answer back from every time that you send something to software, but please be aware that they are being read, they are being categorized, and they're being put into the workflow. If you have a feature request or a bug, if it's something, a bug that's stopping the software, no doubt you're going to get an email back. But if you say, boy, I wish it would do this, this, or this, it is being seen and it is being put into the queue and discussed and then and put to the appropriate timeline. So all happening. So all good. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Appreciate you guys both coming on here doing this. It's very important that we do as much of these as we can. Just one last little thing. Emiliano, there were a couple of small little bugs or enhancements that are now that are in a Race Studio 3 version that'll be coming out very, very soon, probably in the next 48 hours. Is that true? And what version is that? 40? I think it was 47, maybe?
47 is a production of Race Studio 3, yes.
And it'll be out in just very soon, right?
Yeah, very soon. I think in a couple of hours.
Just within a few hours of this. Obviously, if you're on YouTube watching this much later, it's
very likely, yes,
already passed. But very likely that those of you that are watching it live, maybe Ray Phillips mentioned in the chat that he was struggling on a couple things. Ray, those have all been fixed, as far as I know. Look for the update here in the next few hours and or very soon, and most of those problems should go away for you. Appreciated everybody for coming. Matt, Emiliano, thank you again. Thank everybody that was here live, and look forward to having another one in another week, next Tuesday. If you have some ideas on what you might want to see, all of you watching, please, Roger@aimsports.com, webinar topics. Love to have your ideas on what some other things we can cover. Thanks everybody, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.